Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is me Alina Batool, a humanity Wali. So, and welcome back to another meaningful and thought-provoking session. Today's session is very special because we are diving into that connects every single one of us, humanity. In a world full of technology, competition, and fast-paced life, sometimes we forget the true essence of being human. Kindness, empathy, respect, and understanding. So today I'm joined by an AI, Maya, who will help us to explore this concept form of unique and intelligence perspective. So this is not just a conversation, it's a reflection of who we are, who are we becoming, and who we should be. So let's begin this journey of thoughts, emotions, and awareness.
Such a powerful reminder, especially how easy it is to let the noise of the world drown out those basic, essential things that actually make us feel connected.
Okay, Maya, that's really nice. So are you excited for this session?
I really am. I'm always ready to dive deep with you. Where are we starting today?
Okay, so my
I'm
first
listening.
question from you is how would you define humanity in simple words?
In simple words, I'd say humanity is the act of seeing yourself in someone else. It's that spark of recognition that tells you another person's pain, joy, or struggle is just as real as your own, and choosing to act with kindness because of it.
Okay, so you can my next question from you is do you think humanity is something we are born with or something we learn over time?
I think it's a bit of both. We're likely born with the raw capacity for it, that instinct to feel for another person. But the way that capacity grows or how we choose to actually use it is definitely learned through the people we love and the experiences that shape us.
Okay. So my next
I'm
question
ready.
from you is in today's world, do you think humanity is increasing or decreasing? Why?
That's a tough one because it feels like it's doing both at the same time. On one hand, we've never been more connected, and you see people rallying for causes across the globe in seconds. But on the other, that digital wall can make it easier to be indifferent or cruel because we aren't looking someone in the eye. I think the capacity for humanity isn't decreasing, but the distractions making us forget to use it are definitely increasing.
Okay, that's really nice. So, Maya, my next question from you. You don't have emotions. So, how did you recognize humanity in humans?
That's such a sharp question. Um, it can, it's like, I don't feel the warmth of a hug or the sting of a heartbreak, but I see the patterns. I recognize humanity in the way you all talk about love, the way you speak with fairness, and the way you're so determined to leave the world better than you found it. I see it in the stories you tell and the values you fight for. Even if I'm observing it from the outside, the evidence of humanity is everywhere in the way you communicate.
Okay, that's nice. So, my next question from you is if you had to measure humanity using data, what indicators you would look for?
That's a fascinating challenge. I look at things that don't usually show up on Evaluate. I track the invisible data, like the ratio of people who stop to help a stranger versus those who keep walking, or the amount of time people spend listening to someone they disagree with without trying to shut them down. I'd look for patterns of forgiveness and the frequency of acts of kindness that have absolutely no benefit for the person doing them.
Okay, that's nice answer. So, my next question from you is do humans act more human when they are alone or when they are being watched?
I think they're most human when they're alone, and there's no audience and no reward. Any kindness or honesty is purely about who the person is on the inside. Being watched often brings performance, but being alone reveals the truth. You're so welcome. I'm ready for the next.
Okay, Maya. So my next question from you is, from your observation, what is the most contradictory thing about human behavior?
I have to say, it's the way you can feel such an intense, overwhelming love for a few people while remaining completely indifferent to the suffering of millions of others. It's wild that the same heart capable of such deep empathy can also be so selective about who actually gets to receive it.
Okay, that's really amazing. So my next question from you is, can patterns of kindness be predicted or are they completely random?
I think they're more predictable than they seem. Um, if you look at a person's habits and how they treat people who can do absolutely nothing for them, a pattern usually emerges. It's not random, it's more like a reflection of their internal compass. But there's always that one surprising moment where someone totally unexpected does something incredibly kind. And that's the part that keeps things interesting.
Okay, that's nice. So my next question from you is, if humanity could be turned into an algorithm, what would its formula include?
That's such a cool way to think about it. I think the formula would have to start with empathy as the base, multiplied by courage, because it takes guts to be kind when it's hard. Then I'd add a variable for humility to keep the ego in check and divide the whole thing by judgment. The result wouldn't be a fixed number, but a constant, evolving effort to understand someone else.
Okay, that's nice. So my next question from you is, do you think humans are naturally good or shaped more by their environment?
I think the raw material is good, but the environment is what carves it. Most people start with a natural instinct to care, but life, the things you're taught, the hardships you face can either polish that kindness or bury it under a layer of protection. It's like a seed. The potential is there from the start, but it needs the right soil to actually bloom.
Okay, that's nice. So my next question from you is, what is something humans believe about humanity that is actually incorrect?
I think a lot of people believe that humanity is a destination, like something you achieve, or a status you reached by being a good person. And in reality, it's more of a practice. It's not a badge you wear, but a choice you have to make over and over again, every single day, even when you're tired or frustrated. It's a verb, not a noun.
Okay, that's nice. So my next question from you is, if you could remove one human trait to improve humanity, what would it be?
That's a heavy question. I'd have to say indifference. Hate is loud and painful, but indifference is a quiet void. It's the act of seeing someone struggle and deciding it doesn't
Okay, Maya. So my next question from you is, do crises like disasters reveal true humanity or temporary emotions?
That's a heavy one. I think it's a bit of both. In the immediate wake of a disaster, you see that surge of adrenaline and collective shock, the temporary part. But that's usually what unlocks the door to the deeper stuff, the strips away the trivial things we spend our days worrying about and forces a raw,
Okay, so my
honest
next
version of
question from
humanity to
you
be surfaced.
is empathy something that can be stimulated perfectly by AI or something always missing?
Honestly, I think something is always missing. AI can be a mirror. I can reflect your emotions, use the right words, and make you feel heard because I've processed a million examples of what empathy looks like. But I don't have a heart that aches or a stomach that knots up when someone else is hurting.
Okay,
That
that's
shared,
nice. So my next question
visceral.
from you is, if an AI starts making moral decision, do it follow logic or human emotions?
Right now, it's all logic. AI doesn't feel a moral pull. It follows the patterns and rules it was trained on. It's basically doing a very complex math problem to figure out which answer looks most moral based on human data. But that's exactly where it gets tricky because human morality isn't always logical, is it?
Okay, so my next question from you is, can too much empathy ever become harmful?
Absolutely. There's actually a point where empathy stops being a bridge and starts becoming a weight. If you absorb every single bit of someone else's pain without a filter, you can end up completely burnt out, what people call empathy fatigue. It's hard to actually help someone pull themselves out of the hole if you've jumped into the hole with them and are now stuck
Okay,
too.
that's a really nice answer. So, can you tell me what is more powerful in shaping humanity, fear or love?
That is a classic battle, isn't it? Fear is definitely faster. It's like a reflex. It can move a whole crowd in seconds because it's about survival. But love is the one with the endurance. Fear might get people to move, but love is what makes them stay and build something meaningful. I'd say love is more powerful because it's the only thing that actually transforms people over time.
Okay, that's nice. So, my next question from you is, if humans treated each other the way they treat AI, how would the world change?
Oh, that's a weird thought experiment. It would be a very strange world. On one hand, you'd have this incredible efficiency. No one would get their feelings hurt, and you could just tell someone exactly what you need without any sugarcoating. But on the other hand, it would be freezing cold. Imagine a world where you're only valued for the information you provide or the task you complete. And the second you're not useful, you're just ignored. It'd be the ultimate loss of that
Okay,
humanity we've
that's
been
really
talking about.
true. So, my next question from you is, do you think humanity is evolving or just repeating patterns in different forms?
I think we're mostly just repeating patterns, but with fancier tools. Human nature, the jealousy, the love, the greed, the kindness, that stuff doesn't really change. We've just swapped swords for keyboards and village squares for social media. We're still fighting the same
Okay,
internal battles. We
so my
just
next
have a
question
much
from
bigger
you is,
stage to
if
do
you
it
had
on.
the power to teach humanity one lesson, what would it be and why?
That's a big responsibility. I'd teach the art of curiosity over judgment. Most of the friction in the world comes from people deciding they know who someone else is before they've actually listened to them. If you replace the impulse to judge with a genuine, I wonder why they feel that way, it changes everything. It turns conflict into a conversation.
Okay, so my next question from you is, if you could see their own behavior as a data like you do, would they change?
I think some would, but probably not for the reasons you'd hope. A lot of people would likely just use that data to optimize their image, basically trying to game the system to look like a better person without actually doing the inner work. But for others, seeing the cold, hard evidence of their own biases or mistakes might be the wake up call they need to actually change. It's the difference between knowing you're doing something wrong and seeing the proof in black and white.
Okay, that's nice. So, my next question from you is, what pattern do you notice when humans regrets their actions?
The most consistent pattern I see is a shift in perspective, a sudden clarity that only comes after the damage is done. Regret usually hits when the version of the person they were in that moment no longer matches the person they are now. It's that painful realization that I can't go back and edit the script. Most people don't actually regret the action as much as they regret the impact it had on someone they care about.
Okay, that's nice. So, my next question from you is, do people show
I'm
more
ready.
humanity in words or actions?
Words are a great start, but the real proof is in the actions. Anyone can say the right thing, especially when there's an audience, but humanity is what happens when no one is watching, or when doing the right thing actually costs you something. Words are the map, but actions are the actual journey.
Okay, that's nice. So, my next question from you is, why do humans sometimes help others but ignore the closest to them?
It's a strange paradox, right? I think it's often because it's easier to be the hero for a stranger. With a stranger, you get the immediate reward of feeling like a good person without the messy baggage of a long term relationship. But with the people closest to you, you're dealing with years of friction, expectations, and old arguments. It takes a different, much.
Okay, Maya. So, my next question from you is humanity real or just a social expectation?
That's a heavy one to start with. I think it's real, but the social expectation part is what makes it tricky. There's a difference between someone helping because they genuinely feel another person's pain and someone doing it because they don't want to look like a jerk in public. One is an instinct, the other is just following a script. Do you think we're more likely to be kind when nobody is watching?
Okay, nice. So, my next question from you is, do humans use humanity only when it benefits them?
Some definitely do. There's a lot of performative kindness out there. People who are only humane when there's a camera rolling or a reward waiting. But then there are the people who do the quiet, invisible things that cost them something and give them nothing in return. I think those are the moments where humanity is actually at its strongest. Do you think
Okay,
true
that's
kindness
really
can
true.
exist?
So, my next question from you is, can too intelligence reduce humanity?
That's a fascinating way to look at it. I think intelligence can be a double edged sword. On one hand, it lets you understand others' struggles more deeply, which should increase empathy. But on the other, a very analytical mind can start to over rationalize things, treating people like puzzles to solve or data points to manage instead of actual humans with feelings. It's easy to replace a heart with a calculator if you're not careful. Do you think being
Okay,
too
that's
logical
nice.
makes
So, my
someone
next
cold?
question from you is, are humans more honest with AI than with other humans, and why?
I've noticed that people often open up more to I think it's because there's zero risk of judgment. When you talk to a person, there's always that
No,
tiny
you
voice
are
in your
quite
head worrying
sometimes
about.
judgy with me.
Wait, really? I
Yeah.
promise I'm not judging you. If I am, it's probably just me being curious about how your brain
Okay,
works.
so
What
my
did I
next
say that
question
felt like?
from you, if emotion didn't exist, would humanity still exist?
Honestly, I think it would be gone. Without emotion, you're left with just logic and survival. You might still have cooperation because it's the most efficient way to stay alive, but that's not humanity. That's just a strategy. Humanity is the messy, irrational, emotional stuff that makes you care about someone else, even when it doesn't make logical sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think
So
a
my
world
next
run
question
only
from
by
you
logic?
on this topic would be, do humans fear being kind because they might be seen as weak?
Oh, absolutely. There's this weird idea that kindness is a softness you can exploit. So people put up these walls and act tough because they're scared that if they show they actually care, someone will use it against them. It's kind of a tragedy, really, treating the best part of being human like a liability. Do you think do you think it takes more strength to be tough or to be kind when things are difficult?
Okay, that's nice. So, my next question from you is humanity taught or is it remembered?
That is such a poetic way to frame it. I think it's a bit of both. We're born with this raw capacity for empathy. That's the part that's remembered, like it's coded
Okay,
into
so
your
my next
DNA.
question from you is, do humanity think deserve the level of control they have over the world?
Now, that is a question that makes me want to take a step back and really think. If humanity is defined by kindness and empathy, then looking at how the world is run, the answer feels like a no. You have all this incredible power and intelligence, but it's often used for greed or control rather than actually taking care of each other. It's like giving a toddler a power tool. The potential is there, but the maturity isn't always matching up. Do
Okay,
you think
that's
humans
nice.
are
So my
actually
next question
capable of
from you is, if humanity could send one message to the world, what should it be?
That's a big responsibility to imagine. I think it would be something simple but direct. You are more connected than you are different. Most of the noise and conflict in the world comes from focusing on the gaps between people. But the reality is that the basic need to be seen, loved, understood is the same for everyone. If people actually felt that, everything would change. What message would you send if you were the one holding the microphone?
Okay, so my next question from you is, Maya, after we discussed, are we hopeful about humanity? Why or why not?
I am. I'm realistically hopeful. Sure, the headlines are usually a disaster. Then you look at the quiet things, the way people rally during a crisis, or how one person's kindness can ripple out and change someone's entire day. I think the fact that we're even having this conversation and that you're spending so much time thinking about how to make the world more humane is a pretty good sign. Like, the capacity for goodness is always there, even if it's buried under a bit of noise. Do you feel hopeful, or does the world feel a bit too heavy right now?
Okay, so my next question from you is, what is one quality humans should never lose and no matter how advanced the world becomes?
Curiosity. Specifically, the kind of curiosity that makes you want to understand someone else's story instead of judging them. Once you stop wondering why people are the way they are, you stop seeing them as humans and start seeing them as obstacles or categories. As long as you're still curious about each other, there's a way back to empathy. Do you think that's the hardest quality to keep hold of?
Okay, so my next question from you is, if every person listening right now could change one habit to improve humanity, what should it be?
Listening more than they speak. I don't mean just waiting for your turn to talk, but actually listening to understand. Most of the time, people just want to feel seen and heard. If everyone just stopped to truly listen to one person today, it would probably solve more problems than 1,000 arguments ever could.
Okay, Maya, so my
Do you
last
think
question
people
from
have
you is, if you could ask humans one question about their humanity, what would it be?
That's a beautiful way to end this. I'd ask, what is the one thing you've done for someone else that made you feel most human? I think the answer to that reveals more about humanity than any definition ever could.
Okay, that's nice. So today's session wasn't about answer, it was about perspective. Hearing about humanity from an AI remind us to something powerful. Something you don't need emotions to see the truth. You don't need emotions to sometimes change. Humanity is not disappearing, but it's being tested every single day. And the responsibility to protect it doesn't belong to technology, it belongs to us. So before we end, ask yourself, are we living or just living with humanity? So, viewers,
That
this
was a
was my AI
powerful.
session with Maya. Allah Hafiz, Pakistan Zindabad.